It's time for another podcast by George. Straight talk, straight from the Heartland, that'll have you saying, "By George, I think he's got it." Now, here's George.
Hello, hi, how are you? And welcome to another podcast by George. Well, we're going to have some fun today and we're going to learn something. And the reason I know that we're going to learn something is because I encounter this. I talk to people, about things that are legal and not legal in the state of Iowa. The conversation turns to marijuana. And people oftentimes tell me, well, I wish marijuana was legal. I've got somebody that needs it. There's a medical benefit to this. I wish they could get it in the state of Iowa. Well, you can. And people, well, really? Yeah. Well, I wish they could grow it here in the state of Iowa and that like a local company could benefit. They are. It's happening right here in the state of Iowa. Well, I wish they had a dispensary, a place where you could just walk in. They got it. And I kind of attribute this to the fact that maybe people aren't following the news the way that they used to. They don't read the daily newspaper. The local television news is what it is, and people are just unaware of what's happening. So I'm gonna bring in Lucas Nelson. He's the general manager of MedPharm of Iowa to talk about what is well underway right here in the Heartland. Welcome to a podcast by George Liveline, Lucas.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to discussing.
So do you encounter that? Do you run into folks that still are completely unaware of what you're doing?
I do just about every day. I'll tell them this is my day-to-day job, and they'll tell me, no, it's not. You must be joking, or you must be doing something else. But no, this is 100% here in this state, and hopefully soon we'll really be thriving across the entire state.
Well, tell us where you're at today. I'm going to put up some images and maybe some videos to show people what's happening right now. And it's impressive. What you've gotten done so far is quite an accomplishment. Where are you at right now?
Yeah, so MedPharm Iowa, we are a manufacturer and a dispenser. And so we were licensed on the manufacturing side in 2017, spent most of 2018 building out our facility, growing our first plants, processing our first plants into oil, and then producing products. Those products were all delivered to dispensaries around the state on right ahead of December 1st, 2018, when this program really kicked off. And it was at that point that we kind of got the patient side of this thing going. So dispensaries have been open now for about a year, and we're really starting to see some incredible results.
Yeah, and I suppose a lot of this is anecdotal for you personally, because you hear these stories from folks that have benefited. What about the science behind this? There's some research. There needs to be more. Some doctors are reluctant to participate because they feel there isn't enough research. Where are you at on that?
Yeah, so I think it's one of the biggest maybe misconceptions that there's just simply nothing out there. And that's definitely not true. Countries like Israel, the UK, Canada have had medical programs for a while. And so we can pull some research from there. There are pharmaceutical varieties of these cannabinoids, so CBD or THC, that have existed in other countries, like, again, the UK for many years. We can learn from them. There's been all sorts of studies done across the US as well, especially in states like California that have had a program for going on, 20 years now. So there is certainly more. There's always more we can do. There's no doubt about that. I'd love to get some of that going here in Iowa, but there's a good basis for us to, kind of helped us learn how to make products and what products certain conditions need. And then for those folks that come into the dispensaries, how do we dose them? What do we tell them to take? What side effects might they see? So while there isn't maybe as much as there is on something like ibuprofen, there is a lot of research out there that we can benefit from.
Okay, so walk us through this a little bit. Now, I know what marijuana is, and I'm not afraid to tell everybody on this podcast I've used it. Matter of fact, I probably used more than I should have back in the day. I know what marijuana is. I know what THC is. I'm not so sure what CBD is, and I don't know if CBD can be combined with marijuana, and if it is, does it become a low grade of marijuana? And then you got hemp, and that's something. Walk us through this.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a little confusing without kind of diving into it. So the cannabis plant itself, we're probably all pretty familiar with it. it has a variety of different compounds in it. Some of those are called cannabinoids, some of those are called terpenes. Terpenes are smell, taste. Terpenes are found in all sorts of botanicals. So the reason spearmint smells the way it does, the reason rosemary smells the way it does, those are all from terpenes. So you've experienced those in your life before. Cannabinoids are another compound that are found in the cannabis plant. Two of those, and probably the most well known, are THC and CBD. So THC, we usually will say the pain relieving molecule in our program. CBD, that's the anti-inflammation, the molecule that helps with reducing inflammation, helps with reducing seizures, can help with reducing anxiety. Those compounds are stored right within a variety of different plants, cannabis plants. And what we're doing is growing those plants and then extracting those compounds out and then putting them in different formulations. So if we're trying to treat someone with seizures, we're going to give them a lot more CBD. If we're trying to treat someone that's dealing with cancer pain, they're going to end up with a lot more THC. And then when it comes to hemp, that's a specific designation of cannabis. So a hemp plant, it's a cannabis plant. It just happens to be designated as hemp because it has very, very low THC quality amounts. And because of that, it has some different uses. But the actual CBD that you're pulling out of a hemp plant versus the plants we have here, it's the exact same molecule. So for our patients, they're able to get CBD, they're able to get THC, they're able to get combinations of both. Just really depends on what symptoms they're trying to treat.
Well, if you need CBD, I could see why you wouldn't necessarily want THC in CBD. But if you are getting and using THC for the benefit that it has, why would you not want to have the CBD element ingrained in that? I mean, why would you not have it?
Yeah, and in fact, we've seen and learned some of the great benefits that CBD can have right along with THC. So we don't have any products that are purely just THC. CBD, again, we're talking about cancer, we're talking about MS, we're talking about some chronic pain conditions. Those are some really tough things that people are dealing with. And so we want to be reducing some of that inflammation. We want to be taking some of that anxiety down that maybe people don't even realize they're experiencing, while we're still giving them that increased dose of THC to really help with that pain. The other nice thing CBD can do is kind of help balance out some of that, cognitive impairment that certain patients will feel. And so that's important too. We see it as a side effect. We don't want people experiencing that in this program. We're just trying to help them deal with some of the symptoms that they're unfortunately facing with these nasty conditions they're suffering from. So at least in our realm, you won't see any pure CBD or pure THC. We really think they work together well, again, in various ratios, but we're big proponents of making sure you get a little bit of both of them at least.
The ironic part about it is when you talk about even, legalized medical marijuana, you think, well, boy, this is for young people. Young people are going to be flooding the stores for this. Well, I'm getting on. I know a lot of old people that have a lot of pain, a lot of malady. I mean, I would think the primary demographic for medically approved marijuana is probably the older folks. And this pain relief thing is huge. They got a lot of pain, and it's been, this is something that has been researched and proven, right? This is a scientific fact, the pain relieving qualities of marijuana, right? Or
it
THC.
really is. It's where there's probably the largest body of research that's been built up both in the US and around the world. Quite clear that medical cannabis can have extreme benefits for people suffering from severe or chronic pain. You're exactly right. Our typical population, typical patient in Iowa is 56, 57, 58 years old, usually suffering from one of those pain conditions. Tends to be a female, although it's almost an even 50-50 split. But yeah, the patients we see on a day-to-day basis in our dispensary, they're dealing with, chronic pain from a work accident or from fibromyalgia or from just, day-to-day life that starts catching up with you at that age. And they're really looking for something to help treat that pain. Typically, most of these folks, unfortunately, surgery hasn't worked, or other pain relievers haven't worked, or, maybe give them so many side effects that they can't deal with them. And so this is really a great option for those people to see if they can't get some relief from pain and hopefully get back to, at least a little bit of a normal life for them.
Well, tell us about the process now, because let's say you are a sufferer, you're a patient. Okay, there's a couple of things about this. Number one, this product is going to be extremely high quality. I mean, this is the highest grade, best produced stuff you can get. That's the good news. Bad news is it's about impossible to game the system. You've got to be entitled on a medical basis to get this. You've got to, and everybody's followed this around the country in other states. You got to have the card. Tell us about the card and how you are enabled to get this product.
Exactly. So every patient does have to have a medical card in order to buy product. And so the way you get a medical card is first by filling out an application from the Department of Public Health, easy to find on their website. And then you have a separate application that you take to your doctor, and this is really the key step. You're having your doctor certify that you have one of those conditions. So it's not a prescription. We get that question all the time. It's not even really a recommendation. It's simply your doctor saying, yes, you patient have one of these approved conditions. You have cancer, you have MS, you have chronic pain. Doctor signs that, and then those applications are turned into the Department of Public Health. You can pick up a physical card then that looks just like your driver's license from the Department of Transportation, any Department of Transportation location. And it's with that card that you can actually walk into the dispensary and buy product. So you do have to go through a number of different steps before you can actually qualify and ultimately buy something.
Now, here's something I learned from a presentation that you put on recently that was an eye-opener for me. A lot of folks aren't able to get their doctor to prescribe this or to authorize this. And they want to stay with their doctor. Well, you can find a list of approved doctors that are willing to authorize this, and it's not that hard to do, right?
Yeah, it is, especially here in central Iowa. It's getting increasingly easier. So there's a list that the Department of Public Health actually maintains that doctors have opted into from across the state, for that matter. But if someone is maybe struggling or can't find anyone within their medical care to certify those conditions, then they can call the Department of Public Health, and they will actually release some names to you of people of doctors who have been willing to have the conversation. The other thing that's probably always worth noting in this part of the conversation is that, let's say you're suffering from seizures. It doesn't necessarily have to be your neurologist who certifies you. It could be your general care provider. It could be another one of the doctors that you're seeing. The key is that person has to be able to, again, certify that you are suffering from seizure condition. So there may be other doctors that patients are seeing that would be able to certify them, but if that doesn't work, or if they just want to start by contacting the Department of Public Health, that's certainly a good way to find doctors who are open to having this conversation.
And you can do that over the phone, right?
You can. You bet.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, for people that might be considering this, that are suffering, that are looking for an alternative, particularly to a narcotic or an opioid, and they want to give this a try, they can check it out. That was the other part of this. There's a dispensary. You can walk right in and talk to the folks and get comfortable and meet them and see what this is all about, right?
Yes, you can. So dispensaries are located, there's 5 across the state that were authorized by law. Sioux City, Council Bluffs out on the West Coast. And then on the east side of the state, you've got Davenport and Waterloo. And then, of course, right here in Des Moines over in Windsor Heights, you've got a dispensary there as well. MedPharm owns the license here, the dispensary here in Windsor Heights. We also own the one up in Sioux City. But yeah, every one of them is open to the public. And for people, regardless of where you're at, if you're stopping by or if you live in one of those communities, drop in, ask questions of the staff there, get a look at the products, learn more about the program. We, especially in our dispensaries, are always happy to have people come in and learn more. Obviously, you won't be able to buy anything without the medical card, but certainly willing to spend as much time as need be to help walk through that, bit of a confusing process on how someone might be able to get into the program.
It's very informative, and we're probably going to have to check back with you here fairly soon, because this is evolving I don't know, maybe not daily, but almost weekly or monthly. And bring us up to date now on the most recent news. I mean, there's something happening all the time with this.
Yeah, there really is. There's been a lot more attention paid to this program. Obviously, once we got to the space where we were having manufacturers and dispensers in the state, which has been great. It's been nice to have some more attention. Specifically, there's a couple really important things going on. Just recently, in fact, a week ago today, the Medical Cannabidiol Advisory Board. So this is a board set up by the law to help kind of guide the program in a couple different aspects. They actually voted to approve PTSD as a new qualifying condition. So that means that hopefully here within the next several months, people from Iowa that are suffering from PTSD will actually qualify for the program and be able to get certified, get their cards, and then buy products. So that's a huge step, really, really important step for veterans and for people suffering from PTSD from domestic abuse or accidents or all sorts of things like that. And then, of course, the next big thing coming up here, the new legislative session will kick off not too far away in early January. And, unfortunately, last session ended with the governor's veto of a bill that really would have improved the program. But I do think because of that, we're probably going to see even more discussion on this topic here in 2020. So, for those people out there who are interested in kind of participating along with that, we always encourage them to talk to your senators, talk to your House representatives. People are really pretty engaged on this issue, more than I think maybe some other issues across Iowa. So always important for those representatives to hear from their constituents. And I think you'll probably see a flurry of things happening there in early January and February.
Which makes me think, now some of this is in your control. A lot of it isn't. Do you even chart a course or a plan, or how do you see this happening, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we've got really a state course that we've got to be planning for. And then, of course, we've got federal that we've also got to be thinking about, because if something happened at the federal level that, maybe reschedules or even deschedules cannabis, we're in a whole different ballgame. But, one of the things we do is try to keep a very, very open dialogue with as many of the Iowa legislature as we can, with the governor, inviting them to our facilities, keeping a kind of a close, pulse on what's happening and where things may be going. I think this program in this state will improve over the next couple of years, which means we've got to be able to ramp up and be ready for it. At the same time, I'm not so sure anything's going to happen federally, but we've got to, always be keeping our eye on that to be ready to react. It's kind of one of the, maybe joys and toughest parts of this job is that it's not nearly as predictable as a lot of other industries. And so we've got to be able to kind of mobilize quickly, jump on something, stop something, reprioritize quickly. So, it does at least lead to an exciting day-to-day life, but boy, it can wear you down over the course of time too. But, ultimately the people that we've served in Windsor Heights and Sioux City across the state, it makes it worth it to kind of deal with those ups and downs.
Well, folks can follow along. They can check you out. They can contact you. I know that's what you're all about, is being open and transparent and being educational. So MedPharmIowa.com is the website for folks to go to. And I really appreciate you coming on the website. Now, you're the expert. I'm not. I'm just a pontificating podcaster that has a little bit of a pot smoking background with enough knowledge to be dangerous. So before we let you go here, I'll give you the last word. Is there anything here that you'd like to close with to kind of underline for folks?
Yeah, maybe I'll end with just two of my favorite examples that we've seen over the last year. A young boy in Sioux City, seizures, about 100 a day that he was suffering from. His father got him into the program, and he's been able to reduce his seizures to 1 a week or so.
That's great.
Just unbelievable. I mean, can you imagine for the boy, for the family, just really getting their entire life back?
Yeah.
My other favorites from Windsor Heights, an officer shot in the line of duty and was on fentanyl patches, has now completely gotten herself off of those fentanyl patches and on some medical cannabis products. So I know for a lot of people, it's kind of a big jump. You say, oh, well, I didn't know that was here in Iowa. I can't believe that would work. I don't know, would that really help me? But take that first step, learn a little bit more about it, come check it out. Well, look on our website or come visit us. If you're one of those people suffering from some of those conditions, you've got chronic pain, and haven't been able to solve it, then we'd love to have the chance to help you and hopefully, give people a little bit of their life back. So take that first step, and we'll do everything we can to make it a little bit better for you.
Well, that's our new buddy. That's our new pal. That's Lucas Nelson. That's great information, and it's kind of fun to find out about. And God, let's hope they keep her. I mean, I just can't think of anything that has such little downside and so much upside, particularly with all the trials and tribulations with the narcotics and the opioids, which we featured on the podcast. To have this available to folks to give it a try, and I just know it's a great thing. So I'm glad to have Lucas on the live line today. That's Lucas Nelson. He's the general manager of MedPharm of Iowa. And that's another podcast by George.